Loud and clear.
All right, we got a good frame, so we're going to start with Pete Sweeney first. Go ahead, Pete.
Hey, Coach Eck, in talking with Orlando Brown the other day, he had mentioned specifically in coming here, he had to do some unwiring and rewiring. And I just was wondering if you could expand upon that and what does that entail?
I think what he may be referring to is just, the time he spent in another program, different coach, different sort of offense. And so you come to a new offense, maybe new techniques, certainly different terminology. We've got to learn to speak the same language here. And so everything's a little bit different. I remember back to my days as a player when I changed teams a couple of times. It takes a minute to adjust to just all those different things, different techniques, different language. I think that's probably what he's talking about.
Let's go next to Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Andy. So many new guys, obviously, on the offensive line. I think there were 4 new guys who weren't here last year with the first group today, and I think 3, if I counted right, in the second group. What are the challenges of putting all that together in a relatively short period of time? And what's a reasonable time frame? Is it reasonable to expect these guys to be all on the same page by September 12 or whatever it is?
Absolutely. I think, the challenges are to, as you say, gel together as a unit. And for us to find, that starting unit, those combinations of guys, and then the guys, that ultimately will be on our 53 and up on game day. But then more importantly, once we get that group together, that they're communicating well together, speaking the same language. And here's the beautiful thing about all of these guys. They love football and they're all top-notch people, hard workers. So they come in every day excited to work at their craft and come together, and they like each other. So they're having fun out there. So I think to expect that these guys would be able to come together and gel, by early September, absolutely. That would be my expectation.
Next to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Andy, 2 questions for you on Creed Humphreys. Just what did you like about him most through the sort of draft process, and how beneficial do you think it is for a guy who has sort of a wrestling background to transfer that over in terms of leverage playing in the NFL?
Yeah, I'd say what I liked most about him is, and let's just assume that we liked his football skills. He's a good football player, but what I liked most about Creed was his intelligence and his leadership ability. He's, you're looking for those guys, those alphas, those guys that aren't, that won't shy away from a challenge, that don't feel like they've got to stand back while other people lead. I like his confidence and, again, his intelligence, whether it's, football smarts, social smarts. And so far he's been everything we hope for in that regard. And then in terms of having a wrestling background, well, it sure seems like a lot of the good interior players have that in their background. And I was never a wrestler. My brother was, and I appreciated watching those things. And it would seem to me that just having a feel for leverage, and then what do you do when you lose that leverage? Now we've got to reposition, regain that leverage. Seems like it would tie in nicely with wrestling. And so if you've got those that kind of experience, that feel, it would stand to reason it would transfer to the football field.
We'll go next to Sam McDowell. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Andy. With the new faces on the offensive line, I know that you want competition every year, but without sort of setting an unofficial deadline, is there a certain time where you'd say, ideally, I'd like to know which 5 we're probably going with by is it by training camp, just by the opener? Like, are you already starting to pencil that stuff in? What's just that process like?
It's an ongoing process. And I think that, the sooner the better that you can figure that out. You can have guys start working together. Of course, there's also an element of getting other people in there. We're going to need all hands on deck. That's been my experience over the long haul, is that by the end of the season, you're going to have a number of guys ready, not just 5 guys. So that's part of it. But yes, as soon as we can, we want to figure out what that combination is going to be. But, in this type of an environment, an OTA where the emphasis is on learning the system, communication, learning some of the fundamentals and techniques, these serious position battles may not really be underway until we get the pads on.
We'll go last two, Matt and then Steve. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Coach, good to see you again.
You too, Jim.
Trey Smith is not your standard issue 6th round draft pick. There were certainly some extenuating circumstances that you got him where you did. What is it that really stood out to you about Trey on film that you wanted him here? And what's his projection? What's his kind of, how fast do you think he could develop and maybe even potentially become a starter?
I do think that Trey has a starting guard in his future. How fast that will come, that'd be difficult to predict. He has all the physical and mental tools that you'd look for. And he loves football. I mean, that's an indispensable quality. He loves football. He loves to compete, and he's an extremely physical person. These things jump out at you when you watch tape of him. Now, how fast can he learn our system, learn our techniques, really kind of quiet things down in there at that guard position? We'll see. But he's certainly off to a good start and working very hard at it.
We'll go last to Steve Walls. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, Coach. I know it takes some time with all the new O-line guys, developing that chemistry, but I want to get your philosophy on developing identity of that group. Is it something that, does it develop over time, or does it come from a certain way of you coaching them a certain way?
I think, it comes from within the group. It starts with having guys that love football, that love to compete, that refuse to lose. And the more of those kind of guys that Brett and Coach Reed can, assemble here, then the more that's going to show on the field. Now, not everybody is a natural born killer, right? We want to be the toughest, most physical offensive line in the NFL. And, we've got, a lot of tough guys that love to compete and love football. But not everybody's, born that way necessarily. But the more of those guys you collect, and we've got a few of them here, then it raises that sort of identity in other guys. Everybody kind of falls in line with that. And so it kind of grows from within. And then, I see myself as the coach of that group, as that these guys will go as I go. And so that's definitely an emphasis. I always believe in coaching, you are what you emphasize. So we emphasize that in terms of finish. We grade finish on every play. We talk about it. We point out the good and where it needs to be better. And then, we've all been there in a game where you can feel when you're physically winning that battle, or vice versa. And it's more fun when you're winning that battle. That's the name of this game. And the guys love to compete. They love that feeling, and they feed off of each other.
Coach Eck, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, fellas.